Rod Decker, Gospel Tangents.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. There are many charges that the LDS Church meddles too much in Utah politics. Is that true? Rod Decker, who's been a political reporter here in Utah for almost 4 decades, will answer that question. And I think his answer will surprise you. At least it did for me. Check out our conversation.
One of the things that I think most of my listeners will be very interested in, I know that here in Utah especially, there's a reputation that the church is too involved in politics, especially state politics. Mm-hmm. How would you respond to that claim?
Well, okay, the church is somewhat involved in state politics, but it depends on what you mean by involved. Utah politics are essentially what Latter-day Saints want. Mostly that's what it is. They elect the Republicans and they control the governor and they control the legislature, and they decide what happens in Utah politics. But the church as an institution doesn't do a lot, does some, but not a lot in Utah politics. There are 2 poles.
Would you say the church is less involved than the critics claim?
Yeah.
Less involved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, if you talk to conservative Latter-day Saint Republicans, real conservatives, they say they teach them correct principles and let them decide on their own. That's sort of what happens. The Latter-day Saints are conservative about that. They don't like Washington. They're conservative economically, and mostly and giving rise to everything else. They're conservative on moral issues, conservative about sex and families and morals, and that's the way they vote, and that's what determines Utah politics, and that's what has determined it since '76. So Utah politics are Latter-day Saint politics. The church hires lobbyists, has a staff, a permanent staff of lobbyists. They go up the legislature, tell lawmakers what they want. The lawmakers refer to them privately as the home teachers. The home teachers came by and talked to me. But the church doesn't get what it wants all the time. They wanted a rule to make it illegal to secretly tape an interview with your bishop. But people say, what's this? Or secretly tape a phone call with your bishop. No, they didn't get that. They've had other things they don't get. But mostly on moral issues, they get what they want, and sometimes they speak. They say they only talk on moral issues. They get to say what a moral issue is. So they try to speak mostly on moral issues. They don't want to appear bossy and powerful and running things. Utah legislators don't want the church telling them what to do. Utah voters, the Latter-day Saints vote Republican, non-Mormons vote Democratic. There are more Latter-day Saint voters than non-Mormon voters, so they win. But by and large, bishops, etc., don't tell them what to do. There are 2 polls that say, both of them, they polled people of various religions. Latter-day Saints was the one that said they are least likely to hear politics from their pulpit of any religion. They say no. So
compared to evangelicals, the LDS does stay out of politics more than, say, evangelical
that's
churches?
what they say. Now, I suspect...
That's what LDS members say.
Yeah, and they say it to pollsters. I suspect that Latter-day Saints know they aren't supposed to hear politics, and therefore they don't. But I suspect that that maybe it depends on what you call politics and so forth. But they say the evidence, so far as we have evidence on the topic, is that less politics from Latter-day Saint pulpits than from any other pulpit. You say evangelicals, the most politics are on the left. The liberal churches are most likely to talk politics.
Oh, really?
The conservative churches less, and the Latter-day Saints, according to these polls, least of all. So they get in on things, and it's hard for them. Medical marijuana.
I'm glad you went there. I was going to ask you about that.
They didn't want medical marijuana.
The LDS Church didn't want it.
No, and it's okay if it's just medical, but they got involved in California and gay marriage, Proposition 8. They won this great victory, and then they just got beat up on mercilessly by lots of people. They don't want to do that anymore. They want to stay out of that sort of thing. So they didn't want to go out with a big campaign the way they might have in the old days, where they'd have made statements about medical marijuana and had something read from the pulpit and had a person in each stake or ward who was supposed to move the troops. They didn't do that. Instead, they said, well, the legislature, we can work with the legislature. They can't, but that made people mad too.
Yeah, so for people, I'm sure there are some people who don't quite understand what all happened with the medical marijuana issue.
Okay, what happened is this. It was before the legislature. I blame the legislature for this whole thing. It was before the legislature, and the legislature just said, no, we're not interested in medical marijuana. They passed a bill where kids who have epilepsy can get some hemp oil, some marijuana-related oil.
CBD, yeah.
Which evidently helps them.
Cannabinoid, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Or cannabis,
and they passed that. There is almost no scientific evidence on the issue, because it's against federal law. It's a Schedule I drug, and people are doing a little research now, but you couldn't do research. That the feds would come and throw you in jail or give you a hard time. So we don't know. People say it works. Maybe it does, but we don't know. But the forces for medical marijuana, they got people to say, yes, I use it, and it works for me, and I'm just scared to death that I'm going to hear a knock and they're going to throw me in jail because of my arthritis or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But the legislature wouldn't have anything to do with it. So they gathered signatures, forced a vote of the people, and the people voted for it. The LDS Church did not mount a big campaign against it.
Well, let's back up a little bit, because it seems like, so once again, the legislature was not doing the will of the people. So the people gathered signatures, said, we're going to put this on a ballot. Yeah. So once it was on the ballot, then the LDS Church tried to say, we don't like this.
We don't like that. So they changed it. Now,
so the Utahns voted it in, and then the church made a deal, supposedly.
The church clearly talked to the legislators and clearly worked with the legislators on the changes. And it looks a little like Utah's liquor system. They may change it again so that it doesn't, because marijuana is different from liquor. But what they thought they would do is have state distribution. The state would sell it. Now,
at the state liquor stores?
Like the state liquor stores.
Oh, so they're not actually at the liquor stores?
No. They've got you've got the state liquor store, then you have the state marijuana store. Okay. You've got a state distribution point, and you go and you buy medical marijuana there if you have a prescription. That doesn't seem to me, it made some people really angry, but it doesn't, to me, that doesn't seem you could still get medical marijuana, or you can't now because it isn't implemented yet. But the idea is you could still get medical marijuana. If medical marijuana cures your pain, then I would guess that it might cure your pain if you bought it from the state as well as if you bought it from a private outfit. But it's still against federal law. And while it's one thing for the state to say, we'll turn our back if a private enterprise sells marijuana, it's another thing for the state itself to be violating federal law and selling marijuana.
Is the Trump administration going to come after Utah, do you think?
I don't know, but he may not be president by the time this thing gets into effect. So anyhow, it's still being hashed about. It isn't a medical. It isn't a moral issue the way abortion or birth control for teens without telling their parents, or it isn't a family issue. And I think that if they could be sure that it only went for legitimate medical purposes, I think the brethren wouldn't object too much. They're afraid that it'll leak and end up going to junior high kids or something. If they could be sure it was legitimately used, I think their objections would not be so large. But it's got people upset.
Yeah, well, definitely, because I know a lot of people have complained that, here we are, we voted this law in, and then the legislature just went around and changed it. They at least allowed marijuana to be legal, but they made a lot of changes that a lot of people didn't like. Well,
okay, I don't know quite what the objections are. If you can get medical marijuana, then what's the big deal?
Well, I think the original initiative said you could grow your own plants, and I think they took it out.
No,
I
don't think that was it. That was in at one point. I don't know that passed. I have stopped reporting on politics, and I don't know about current events very much. I had thought that the grow your own was out, but maybe not. Maybe there was a grow your own in there.
I thought it was in there, but
okay.
I'm not sure.
Well, you know then. Okay, there was a grow your own. I admit that's a change, and that's significant. Mm-hmm. Okay, the one that was big, worse in my opinion, was extension of Medicaid, and that was they voted essentially to accept Obamacare, and the legislature just said no. Now that is.
In the recent election.
Yeah. They voted to extend Medicaid the same time they voted in medical marijuana, and the legislature just said no, we won't extend Medicaid. Did I say Medicare? Medicaid. The legislature said we won't extend it. We won't adopt the Obamacare plan, even though the people voted for it. Now in the medical marijuana, you still got your medical marijuana. But in the extension of Medicaid, there are a lot of poor Utahns who don't get it. They just it's just gone for them. Now, they had their own plan, the legislature. They sent it back to the Trump administration. The Trump administration said, no, we won't give you the waivers. So maybe they'll enact what the people want next year, maybe, after all.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because can you explain why the legislature completely subverted the ballot initiative on that? Because I don't understand what their reasoning was.
Well, they believe that it will grow, and over time, I can't remember the exact numbers, but Medicaid is the fastest growing part of the Utah state budget. Now, most of it's paid, 70% is paid by the federal government, but it's gone from up to about 20%. Or maybe more. It grows and grows and grows and grows, and they say this will make it grow more and grow faster, and it will make it hard to balance the budget in the future.
So this is a budget issue for them. They're afraid that once the federal subsidies get over, Utah's going to be overextended? Because Utah's
Yes.
really big on balancing budgets.
That's right. They're afraid that this is a budget issue for them. And besides, they just don't like it. But the big thing they talk about is the budget issue. And they say, we'll expand it just for the really poor people, but we won't go to the middle class people. And the Trump administration won't do that.
So, and I guess the question then comes is, isn't this a family issue? Shouldn't the church become involved as a lobbyist on this?
Well, the church doesn't consider this a family issue. The church gets to say what a family issue is and what they'll get involved in.
And they want no part of this.
The Catholic, but they just don't say anything about it. The Catholic Church says this is a family issue, and they have a lobbyist up there who's lobbying for, or was lobbying for extension of Medicaid. And some of the other churches lobbied for that. The Church of Jesus Christ, they worked on medical marijuana to change that, but they didn't work on they had nothing to say about extension of Medicaid.
Well, and they haven't said anything about the gerrymandering. That was another thing that passed.
Well, it hasn't happened yet. We don't know what they're going to do with that. They haven't done anything to that yet, and they may not.
Because I know that's a big issue, especially with non-Mormons, because they've carved up Salt Lake County into 4 districts to dilute the Democratic vote.
Yes. Okay. The fundamental issue is this: Utah has 4 congressional districts, and about a third of Utah's vote is Democratic, maybe a little more. So, is it fair? You could say every district ought to be about the same as Utah. Then every district's Republican. Or you could say the Democrats ought to get one. Democrats want one. They want a Democratic district. The Republicans don't want to give them one. Now, it would make a difference of a couple of legislative seats, but not any, unless you happen to be the legislator representing that, not any big deal.
Are you talking about state or national?
State. It'd make a couple of state legislature seats, and it would mean 1 congressional seat. Now, the Democrats have a congressional seat now. They're going to, and they've held it. They've had one. Jim Matheson held that seat for a long time. That was a Republican mistake. When they gerrymandered at last, there was Rob Bishop, who said, I don't want all those Democrats in my 1st district. There was Jason Chaffetz, I don't want them all. So they ended up putting most of them in the 4th district, where there wasn't a Republican to say I don't want them. So that was a less Republican than the other districts, and consequently they've lost it for most of
yeah, because originally in 2010 there were only 3 districts, and so then they created the 4th district.
Right.
And that's where they put most, I guess. Well, because it's
they
really,
put a lot of Democrats
balanced.
from west. Yeah, it is a Democratic district, but it's a just barely Republican district. So Jim Matheson could hang on to it, and Ben McAdams could win it.
Right.
And we'll have to wait and see.
Mia Love had that seat.
She had the seat twice.
Years.
Yeah, for 2 terms, 4 years.
4 years. Okay.
Yeah, she beat Doug Owens. She beat him twice.
Okay.
Okay. So she had it 4 years, and then now McAdams has it, and I don't know whether they'll make a hard run at him.
Well, because I know that the citizens passed a law that said we want an independent commission, and
that's
it seems
right.
Like the legislature overrode them again.
No, the legislature hasn't overridden them yet. It doesn't matter. It was passed at 18, and it doesn't matter till 20. So next winter they may override them. It is only advisory. The Utah Constitution says the legislature shall redistrict. So everyone agrees that you have a committee, and the committee says, well, we think you should cut the districts this way. The legislature can say, well, thank you for your input, and then do what it wants. So they could just override them in practice. Or they could change things in advance, either abolish them or do whatever they want. And they may do that. They may do that next winter, or they may just wait and see. I don't know what they'll do, but they don't very much want to give the Democrats a congressional seat, and they'd rather not give them an extra couple of legislative seats too. But that wouldn't make any difference. The Republicans would still have elephantine majorities.
All right.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Rod Decker. Our next conversation with Rod will be our last, and it's going to be only available to those who are newsletter subscribers. So to subscribe to our free newsletter and get a secret link to the final part of our conversation with Rod, please sign up at gospeltangents.com/newsletter, and you can hear the final part of our conversation. We'll talk about how long there have been charges that the LDS Church has influenced Utah politics too much.
There are always some who say that the LDS Church has too much power. From the first legislature in 1896, I have legislators saying the LDS Church is too powerful up here.
Unless they're on my side, right?
Yeah, unless they're on my side. Yeah, yeah.
If you'd like to hear the entire interview uncut, please support Gospel Tangents and become a subscriber. For just $5 a month, go to patreon.com/gospeltangents and you can hear the entire interview. And you can also get transcripts available at either our Amazon website, or if you want to give the money to me and not Amazon, please subscribe on my website at gospeltangents.com and you can click the yellow subscribe button. Of course, we're also on Facebook, Twitter, and all the other places. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes at tinyurl.com/gospeltangents. And don't forget to click here to subscribe on YouTube, here for a transcript, and over here we've got some more of our great videos. Thanks again for listening.